Did you know that over 300 people have had their Canadian citizenship revoked in the past few years alone? And no, these aren't just people involved in serious crimes. In some cases, it was due to something as simple as a mistake on a form or failing to disclose information that didn't even seem important at the time. Shocking, right? What if you, or someone you love, could be next without even realizing it? Canada is known for being one of the most welcoming countries in the world, but a new rule quietly introduced is changing that image. Behind the scenes, laws are tightening, and what used to be permanent is no longer guaranteed. Now, even longtime citizens might be at risk of losing everything, simply for unknowingly breaking one of these updated conditions. And the scariest part? Many people don't even know this rule exists. In this video, we're breaking down the 10 surprising reasons why your Canadian citizenship could be taken away under this new policy, and how you can protect yourself. Some of these might sound ridiculous or unfair, but they're real. So stay with us till the end, because what you don't know could cost you your citizenship. Number 1. Fraud or misrepresentation. This is the number one reason Canadian citizenship gets taken away, and it surprises more people than you'd expect. Fraud or misrepresentation doesn't always mean someone intentionally lied or tried to cheat the system. In many cases, it's about information that was incomplete, inaccurate, or left out, even if it seems small or harmless at the time. Canadian immigration law is very clear. If your citizenship was obtained using false or misleading information, it can be revoked years later. Here's where it gets scary. Misrepresentation can include wrong dates, missing travel history, incorrect residency days, or even using a consultant who submitted false details without your full knowledge. Some people trusted agents, signed paperwork without double-checking, and years later found out those documents contained errors. The government doesn't always care who made the mistake, only that the information was not truthful. What makes this rule even more dangerous is that there is no time limit. You could have been a Canadian citizen for 10, 15, even 20 years, built a life, raised a family, and still lose your citizenship if authorities later decide it was granted under false pretenses. And with advanced data sharing, digital records, and international cooperation, old applications are now being re-examined more closely than ever before. So what can you do? First, understand this clearly. "I didn't know" is not a defense. If you're a citizen today, it's smart to review your original application, especially your residency days, employment history, and supporting documents. If something looks wrong or unclear, speak to a qualified immigration lawyer immediately, before the government contacts you. This reason alone has caught thousands of people off guard, and the worst part, most of them never saw it coming. Number 2. National security threats. This one sends chills down the spine. Being labeled a threat to national security doesn't always mean you've committed a crime or been convicted in court. Under Canada's Citizenship Act, the government has the power to revoke your citizenship if you're believed to be involved in activities that go against the country's national interests. And with recent changes, the definition of a security threat is broader than ever before. Here's what that could include: alleged involvement in terrorism, espionage, treason, or membership in certain foreign organizations considered dangerous by the Canadian government. The catch? In some cases, this can happen based on intelligence reports or associations, even if you've never been formally charged or arrested. Just being suspected or linked to someone under investigation can trigger serious consequences. That's where things get unsettling. You don't need to be proven guilty in a criminal court to be seen as a risk. The government's top priority is national safety, especially in today's global climate of cyber threats, international conflicts, and extremist groups. And while that's understandable, the process for determining who poses a threat isn't always transparent. In some cases, people find out only after receiving a notice that their citizenship is being revoked. They may be given a chance to respond, but often with limited time and resources. What can you do to stay safe from this? Be mindful of your affiliations, your online activity, and any groups or causes you support, especially if they're political or international in nature. Even social media posts, donations, or travel to conflict zones can raise red flags. The government tracks more than we think. This reason may seem extreme, but it's real, and it proves that in today's world, citizenship isn't just a right, it's something you have to protect.
Number 3. Serving in a foreign military or government. Imagine this. You serve in another country's military, maybe to help family, fulfill a duty, or even as a temporary job, only to find out later that your Canadian citizenship is now at risk. Sounds extreme? Under Canadian law, serving in a foreign military or holding a position in a foreign government, especially one that's in conflict with Canadian interests, can be grounds for citizenship revocation. The core issue here is loyalty. Canada expects its citizens, especially dual citizens, not to take up roles that may be seen as serving the political or military interests of another nation, particularly one that is hostile or unfriendly toward Canada. Even if your intentions were harmless or rooted in personal reasons, the government could interpret your actions as a conflict of interest or a breach of allegiance. This rule isn't limited to active soldiers. It can also include working in foreign intelligence, high-ranking government positions, or law enforcement roles in countries with problematic human rights records or strained diplomatic ties. In today's globalized world, where many people hold dual citizenship, it's easy to get caught up in political or military obligations abroad, sometimes without realizing the legal risks back home. Let's be clear, this doesn't mean that any foreign job or service will cost you your citizenship. But if Canada views the government you served as a national threat or your role as compromising your Canadian obligations, you could be flagged. And under the updated rules, the bar for revocation is now lower than ever. To protect yourself, always check with legal experts before accepting government or military roles abroad, especially in politically sensitive regions. Your intentions might be personal or patriotic elsewhere, but to Canada, it might look like divided loyalty, and that could cost you your citizenship.
Number 4. Dual citizenship conflicts. You might think having dual citizenship is a bonus, a way to enjoy the best of both worlds. But what most people don't realize is that your second nationality could quietly become a legal liability, especially under Canada's tightening citizenship rules. In certain cases, your activities in your other country could come back to haunt you and even cost you your Canadian citizenship. Let's say you get arrested or charged with a crime in your second country. You might assume that Canada will intervene, protect you, or bring you back. But if the Canadian government views your actions as a serious offense, and especially if you use your non-Canadian citizenship to avoid Canadian laws or responsibilities, your status can be challenged. In fact, Canada may even decide you're more aligned with your other country, which can trigger a revocation review. It gets more complicated when dual citizens engage in political activism, military service, or government work in their other country, especially if that country has policies or practices that contradict Canadian values. And while many Canadians legally hold 2 passports, any conflict of interest or perception of prioritizing another nation's interests could be used to question your loyalty and eligibility for citizenship. In some cases, even something as small as renewing your other passport too frequently or failing to declare dual citizenship in official Canadian forms could raise flags. Authorities may view this as misrepresentation or divided allegiance, 2 things Canadian law takes very seriously. To avoid these pitfalls, always be transparent with Canadian immigration authorities about your dual status. If you travel or work internationally, especially in sensitive regions, get legal guidance before making commitments. Remember, while dual citizenship seems like freedom, it comes with risks that could cost you your Canadian identity. Number 5. Involvement in war crimes or human rights violations. You might think that once you're granted Canadian citizenship, your past is behind you, but that's not always the case. One of the most serious and often overlooked reasons for citizenship revocation is involvement in war crimes, crimes against humanity, or serious human rights violations. And here's the part that shocks many people. These actions don't have to occur in Canada or even after you became a citizen. In fact, the Canadian government has the power to strip citizenship if it later discovers that you were involved in atrocities overseas, even if it happened decades ago. This includes actions such as torture, genocide, ethnic cleansing, or crimes committed as part of a regime or military force that violated international law. Whether you were a direct participant or an official who enabled those acts, your past can follow you, even after starting a new life in Canada. This reason has already been used in several high-profile cases where individuals were found to have hidden their past during the immigration process. In some situations, people may not have disclosed their roles in certain political or military organizations because they feared it would affect their application. And they were right. Years later, once their involvement came to light through international investigations or whistleblowers, they faced immediate citizenship revocation and even deportation. The key message here: Canada takes its commitment to human rights very seriously. Being a citizen of this country means upholding those values, not just today, but throughout your life story. Even if you believe your past actions were justified or misunderstood, if they violate Canadian or international human rights standards, they can put your status at risk. So if you're concerned about your past affiliations, consult a legal expert immediately. Silence won't protect you, transparency might. We put a huge amount of time and research into making videos like this to keep you informed. So if you found it valuable, drop us a comment with your thoughts or experiences. And hey, subscribing is just one click, but it means the world to us. Number 6. Misrepresentation in tax filings or residency. Here's something most people don't think about when it comes to citizenship. Your tax filings and residency records could actually cost you your Canadian status. That's right, even if your citizenship was approved years ago, if the government later finds out that you misrepresented your residency days or tax obligations, you could be at serious risk of losing it all. During the citizenship process, applicants are required to prove they physically lived in Canada for a certain number of days. But what many don't realize is that the Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, are increasingly sharing data to verify claims. If your tax records don't match your residency declaration, it raises red flags. For example, if you claim to live in Canada but filed taxes as a non-resident or failed to report foreign income, this could be considered fraud. Even if the mistake wasn't intentional or was the fault of a tax advisor or consultant, you are held responsible. The government treats these inconsistencies as misrepresentation, especially when they result in you receiving immigration benefits like PR or citizenship you might not have otherwise qualified for. And once misrepresentation is proven, citizenship revocation is absolutely on the table. It's also important to know that technology has made these checks easier than ever. Travel history is tracked digitally through passport stamps, border records, and now even facial recognition tools. Combine that with tax filings and banking activity, and it's clear, you can't fake your time in Canada anymore. To protect your status, always ensure your residency records and tax filings are consistent. Keep copies of all travel records, notice of assessments, and legal documents. If you're unsure, seek advice from an immigration or tax lawyer before a small inconsistency becomes a reason to revoke your citizenship. Number 7. Citizenship through a fraudulent sponsor. This one shocks a lot of people. Your citizenship can be revoked if the person who helped you get it is later found guilty of fraud, even if you did everything right. It's called citizenship by fraudulent sponsorship, and it's one of the most overlooked legal loopholes that could pull the rug out from under longtime Canadian citizens. Here's how it works. If you became a citizen through a sponsorship like a spouse, parent, or guardian, and that person is later discovered to have lied, submitted fake documents, or committed marriage fraud, your own status can be automatically reviewed. Even if you were completely unaware of the fraud, the government can argue that your citizenship was granted based on a foundation of dishonesty. In one real-life case, a woman's citizenship was stripped years after being sponsored by her husband, who was later convicted of marriage fraud involving multiple people. Even though she had settled in Canada, paid taxes, and lived a law-abiding life, the court ruled that the original sponsorship was invalid, and therefore, so was her pathway to citizenship. It may seem harsh, and many argue it's unfair, but the law prioritizes the integrity of the immigration process over individual circumstances. If the system was misused, any benefits gained from that misuse can be taken away, regardless of how much time has passed. To protect yourself, if you were sponsored by someone, make sure their immigration story is clean and well documented. If you suspect something was off or if your sponsor has been investigated or convicted, speak with an immigration lawyer immediately. In these cases, what someone else did can cost you everything, even if you were innocent.
Number 8. Failure to renounce previous citizenship. While dual citizenship is generally allowed in Canada, there are rare but critical cases where failing to renounce your original citizenship, when required, can actually put your Canadian status in jeopardy. This one catches people completely off guard because it sounds like a small technicality, but under specific conditions, it can be a legally valid reason for revoking your Canadian citizenship. Here's the thing. Although Canada allows dual nationality, some countries do not. In certain immigration or naturalization pathways, particularly if they involve security-sensitive roles, diplomatic positions, or countries with restrictive laws on allegiance, you might have been asked to renounce your previous citizenship as part of the process. If you fail to do so or falsely declared that you did, that counts as misrepresentation. This isn't just a clerical error. If Canadian authorities discover that you were supposed to renounce but didn't, or that you submitted false proof of renunciation, it could be seen as a deliberate attempt to circumvent citizenship rules. And because this misrepresentation directly affects the validity of your citizenship application, revocation becomes a very real possibility, even years later. Let's take an example. If someone gains Canadian citizenship under a treaty or international agreement that requires exclusive allegiance, but quietly keeps their old passport and even continues using it, they're not just breaking foreign laws, they're putting their Canadian status at risk too. Immigration systems today are much more interconnected, and foreign governments often share data with Canada. To protect yourself, always double-check the terms under which you became a Canadian citizen, especially if renunciation was part of the requirement. Keep records, legal proof, and correspondence. If you're unsure about your status or obligations, speak with a citizenship lawyer right away. Sometimes a tiny unchecked box can trigger a chain reaction that ends in citizenship loss. Number 9. Children of fraudulent citizens. What if you were born into Canadian citizenship or became a citizen as a child through your parents? Can that ever be taken away? Shockingly, yes. One of the most emotionally charged and lesser-known reasons for revocation is when a child's citizenship is linked to a parent who obtained their status through fraud or misrepresentation. If that parent's citizenship is revoked, the child's citizenship can also be invalidated, even if they had nothing to do with the original issue. This is known as derivative citizenship, where a minor becomes a citizen through their parent's application. But here's the catch. If the parent is later found to have used fake documents, lied about their identity, or failed to disclose critical information, the entire citizenship chain is considered compromised. And that means the child's citizenship, no matter how innocent or unaware they were, can legally be challenged. There have already been cases in Canada where individuals in their 20s or 30s found out that their citizenship was at risk simply because of something their parents did decades ago. They grew up Canadian, went to school here, paid taxes, worked, and never even questioned their legal status. But once the government uncovered fraud in the parent's immigration record, the consequences trickled down to the next generation. This can feel especially unfair. But the law is focused on the validity of the original pathway. If that path is proven false, then everything built on it is subject to review. The emotional and legal fallout can be devastating. People who thought they were Canadian from birth suddenly find themselves facing deportation or statelessness. If you became a citizen as a child through your parents, it's worth reviewing your family's immigration history. If there's even a hint of doubt, speak to an immigration lawyer. You deserve to know if your status is truly secure or at risk due to someone else's past mistakes. Number 10. Administrative errors that go unreported.
It might sound unbelievable, but one of the most overlooked reasons someone can lose their Canadian citizenship is because of a simple government error and failing to report or correct it in time. These aren't criminal acts or intentional frauds. They're technical mistakes, often made by immigration officers or in outdated systems. But if left unaddressed, they can result in your citizenship being declared invalid years down the line. Here's how it happens. You apply for permanent residency or citizenship, and due to a clerical error, missing document, or incorrect data entry, your file is approved when it technically shouldn't have been. Maybe a key eligibility requirement wasn't actually met, or a background check was incomplete. At the time, you're unaware. You receive your citizenship certificate and life goes on. But if the government later audits your file and uncovers the error, they may determine that your citizenship was granted by mistake and therefore should never have been approved in the first place. In these cases, you didn't lie. You didn't break any laws. But the problem is that your citizenship isn't legally valid because the approval was based on incorrect or incomplete information. And under Canada's current legal framework, that's enough grounds for revocation, even if it was 100% the government's fault. The scary part? You might never know unless you actively check your immigration file or receive a notice years later. That's why it's crucial to review your own documents, keep copies of every application you've submitted, and pay attention to timelines and correspondence from IRCC. If something in your file doesn't seem right, or if you were approved faster than expected or with fewer requirements, don't assume it's a lucky break. It could be an administrative error that becomes a legal nightmare if not caught in time. If you've made it this far, one thing should be crystal clear. Canadian citizenship is not as permanent as many believe. Whether it's due to misrepresentation, a sponsor's fraud, involvement in questionable international activities, or even an administrative error, there are real and growing risks that could lead to revocation, even after years of living as a proud Canadian. What's most alarming is that many of these risks are completely avoidable. Most people don't lose their citizenship because they're criminals or terrorists. They lose it because of mistakes, misinformation, or a lack of awareness about how seriously Canada enforces its laws around immigration and citizenship. In today's digital world, everything is traceable. Residency, tax filings, travel history, even past affiliations. One small misstep, intentional or not, can trigger consequences that are difficult to reverse. So what can you do? First, take ownership of your legal status. Review your documents, check your immigration history, and consult a professional if you're unsure about anything in your file. Don't wait until you receive a letter in the mail. It could already be too late. Stay informed, stay prepared, and remember, citizenship isn't just a document. It's a commitment to transparency, honesty, and responsibility. Now, we want to hear from you. Did any of these 10 reasons surprise you? Have you heard of anyone affected by these rules? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more eye-opening content, and share this with anyone who might be at risk. Also, check out our next video, how to keep your PR status safe in 2026. You won't want to miss it. Stay informed, stay protected.